2023 70.3 Ironman Oregon. This is our pre-race information session, race overview, whatever you want to call it. We are diving into the athlete guide here. Make sure you read this before you head out to the event, and also once you get there, so you can have your questions ready when you do check in, and also when you attend those athlete briefings. So this is our athlete guide event schedule here. We have our check-in available on that Friday from 2 to 7. This is located on page 4. And we have 2 athlete briefings, 3 and 6 p.m. Locations, all at Riverfront City Park. That's where the majority of this is going to be held. Saturday athlete check-in 9 to 5. It is available. Mandatory bike check-in and timing chip pickup. You will get your timing chip when you do pick up, or when you do drop off your bike. That is going to happen at 9:30 to 5:30 p.m. Athlete briefings do last from 11 to noon, and also 1 to 2, and there is a final one from 3 to 4. There is also a life sport clinic, mastering open water for beginners and experts, also from 2 to 3 on Saturday, which is very, very cool to see there. There is also a little clinic for race nutrition and pacing strategies from noon to 1, so they do have a full day schedule for you. I would suggest going to one or the other, just to limit the amount of time you are on your feet and the stress before race day. Now, Sunday, which is race day, transition opens at 5, ends at 6:30. So it's a quick transition, and that is because you do have to walk to that swim start. The race does start at 6:15, and you are going to have awards at 3:45 p.m. They usually do those, and then they have the awards, or not the awards, the slot allocations thereafter. Athlete check-in on page 5 tells you where, when, what to bring, and the steps for there. Please note you will pick up your timing chip when exiting the bike check-in on Saturday. They do make a point to let you know that other stickers will not be permitted on your bike, so if you have those from a previous event, you must get rid of those. Page 7, pre-race info such as physical address, parking, mandatory bike check-in, all right here. Again, talks about your timing chip. Again, you will pick that up once you drop your bike off. During that mandatory bike check-in, it is from 9:30 to 5:30 in the transition area on Saturday. There is no bike check-in on race morning. Also, race morning, you will not be allowed to remove your bike from the transition area. So just be aware of that. Rolling down here on page 8, we have our race day morning procedure. That transition does open at 5 a.m. and it closes at 6:30 a.m. Body marking is not happening this year at this race venue. Aid stations on the bike happening every 15 miles, and we'll talk about that in a second. They're going to have the usual fixings, and on the run, going to be about a mile apart with the same thing there. Again, your timing chip will not be in your packet when you pick it up. It will be after you drop off your bike the day before. Something new here, page 9, on-course products. They show you what they're offering here, so you can kind of get it in advance if you want to play around with that during your race lead up, your training there. On the run course, this is some of the offerings there here as well. And hot take here, lemon lime is way better than orange. Page 10, race day info. We have time cutoffs and wetsuit optional swim information right there. Rolling down here, relay teams are on page 12. Post-race info is on page 13. This is the awards. They are happening at 3:45 p.m. pending the final finisher, with the slot allocations happening thereafter. They say that they will happen around 4 p.m. If you are in the hunt for your slot, make sure you're arriving there early, just in case they do decide to go a little bit earlier. So don't miss your slots. Arrive early and be there on time. Qualifying information here is listed on page 15 for your 70.3 World Championships. And without further ado, let's dive into some course specifics. First thing that you will see is this giant blue line or purple line going from the transition area all the way to our swim start here. It is a 1.2 mile walk that you will have to do on race morning. Morning close drop off happen at the swim start, so don't be alarmed. You should pack an extra pair of shoes or something like that you are not afraid to walk 1.2 miles. Just want to say that again. So I would probably go against things like sandals or things like that, just because they have a tendency to rub and give you blisters, and that is probably the worst way to start your day, is with a blister. Now, diving in here, we have our swim start, which is a time trial start. It's not a mass start this year, which will make things a little bit easier, but it is a pretty straightforward swim. What you're probably going to have is a buoy at this point in time right through here that's going to force you to go to the outside and then down the river. You are also going to have a buoy somewhere right through here, and they're going to be scattered around here for key ones, and you can see that there is the last buoy, or the only buoy that they have listed out here, and you are going to have to go around that one as well before you dive directly into transition there. Now, a couple of quick things to note, because there is a little bit of a bend here and it happens very early on in our race start. This area is the first area of importance on race day. Even so, you are getting released probably 3 or 4 athletes at a time. It is going to be bunched up big time at this little slight bend. Anytime you have these on course, they are a recipe for just the washing machine effect on race morning. So be ready to battle early on, because it's going to be on once it starts. After you clear this little bend here, it will start to even out, and you will have some open water after you navigate this little bend right through here. And this is a tighter channel here, so there's not going to be a whole lot of room here, so people are going to be lined up, and I don't expect it to be more than 3 or 4 wide at any given point in time here. There's just not enough room here, and there's probably going to be kayakers and people preventing you going from everywhere. So it's a pretty straight shot. I don't expect the swim to be challenging from a navigational standpoint. I expect it to be challenging from a other swimmer standpoint. There's not going to be any real opportunity to get away from anyone, and this is a true time trial swim. Okay, once you are with your group of people that you get released with, I would try and work with them as best as possible, if you can. That's going to lead to race day success if you do get out of the gates with a group of like-minded individuals. If everyone's on the same page and they're ready to rock and roll, then I'd say go for it. This is going to be a swim where you do have the opportunity to go a little bit faster than you typically would like, at least effort-wise. It's not an overly complicated one. If you are in a pack that's going a little bit slower than you want to go, or you typically swim in your race simulations, then go a little bit faster than them, go your pace here, and you will reap the benefits, really. This race course is going to be one that kind of sucks you into those group dynamics, and in your mind, you're not going to want to break off from them. Don't be afraid to break off on this course. There's going to be people all over this course. You're not really going to swim away from anyone unless you're in one of the front groups for this time trial start. And that's the swim, believe it or not. It's not overly complicated here, so don't make it overly complicated on race day. Swim your pace, and you are going to reap the benefits of that on race day. Swim course rules and wetsuit rules are listed on page 19. And rolling here, we do have the bike course, which is one of my favorite things in all of triathlon. It is an out and back section where you hit the turnaround right through there and you are going back in. So that is the real only thing that you have to navigate. It's an out and back. You're going to know where everyone is pretty much at all times, especially once you get closer to this section back through here, which we will talk about in a second. So let's dive over to one of my favorite sites here. A little bit more concrete elevation gain here. We have about 1,300 feet of elevation gain, give or take about 100 miles either way. And because of that, I expect this to be a very, very fast course, weather pending, and that can play some huge impacts over the course of this race. So what you want to do at the very beginning of this race is, when we switch over to our best bike split power plan for this individual athlete, let's get rid of the adjusted time so it's a little cleaner for you. This weather here, the wind speed and direction, this tab right here, it goes north to south typically, right? So what that means, right out of the gate, you're going to have a tailwind that's going to shoot you out of the gate. It's going to be awesome, right? Major red flag. Major, major, major red flag. Anytime that happens, a lot of athletes, most athletes are going to pay for it later on. This whole section right through here, you should have warning lights flashing here. It should be fast, right? You should be able to get up to speed and hold it relatively easily. If you're typically a rider that rides at 18 miles an hour and you find yourself holding 22, 23 miles an hour relatively easily, take that as a win. Don't chase the extra 2 or 3 miles an hour and make it very hard on yourself during this tailwind section. The adrenaline is going to be up, right? There's probably going to be packs of people on a course like this, and you're going to have to be careful big time, right? That chasing the extra speed on the first couple of miles, probably up until mile about, it's going to be mile 11. Right, ish. Once you start to make that sharp left-hand turn there and the real kind of fun begins, athletes are just going to go totally crazy. So don't be afraid to let people kind of drift away from you, not totally let them go, right? But don't be afraid to let them go off to the front and do the work for you if you are experiencing those pack dynamics on this course, which most people will. Okay, stay within your power plan at these 11 miles. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. Anyone that's done Ironman California last year will know what I'm about to say in the next couple of minutes here. Because once you get to that turnaround, it's going to be the opposite for you, right? So you're going to have to save all of this for later on. And it's a flatter course that does get impacted by that weather. So once you start to make this turn here, again, that wind direction is typically going, it's going to be probably a little bit different, but for the most part like this. Right, so you're going to have that tailwind. It's going to be on the dirtier side of the bike right there, so it's going to catch it a little bit more, and it's going to feel like a direct tailwind, even though it's not, right? And then you're going to really get that tailwind in this section right through here. And then you're going to make this turn, and then things are going to change big time. You're going to experience a crosswind during this section, but it's still going to be pushing you a little bit once you get down over here, and then you're making another turn, and you are going to have another great, great tailwind. And again, warning bells should be going off in your mind here to not totally overdo it, because after we get to Buena Vista down there, that is where the real work starts, and that's really going to last for the remainder of the ride. During this section through here, we do have a crosswind up before we make the turn, and this area is going to be the biggest key out on course right here. And this is because you're going to be able to experience just for a little bit what that headwind is going to be like on the way back. If you arrive at that section and you're saying, wow, that section was really, really tough, we have major, major problems, because it is not. This section here, and I'll highlight a little bit more of it, we have 40 feet of elevation gain, and for the most part, it's all under 1%. And even less than that. So if that section is feeling hard for you, you have major, major issues about to happen all the way back, and you went way too hard. Once you do turn around, we are going to have a crosswind again, and this time it's going to be a little bit tougher during this section here, because you are going to be hit a little bit more. It's going to be hitting you from the dirty side of the bike, right? So it's going to grab you a little bit more, and it's just not going to be great. You're going to make a right-hand turn, couple of them, and you're going to go directly into the headwind, and this is one of the biggest keys on the course right through here. And I grabbed the wrong tool, so let me click the right one right through here. During this section, this is going to be the point in time, an easy point in time if you are in the pack still, where people are just going to just fall off the group or just flow away from people, and it's just going to happen naturally here. It'll be a natural selection. So if you are experiencing those pack dynamics and you do want to make an easy kind of play, a power play within your group, that is a major, major place to do it. And time is running out on the race course once you get there. Towards the end of this section, right, it's going to be at mile, let's call it 40, 39, right in there. So there's not a whole lot of time left, and it's only going to get harder for us because we have a crosswind, and again, it's coming from the dirty side of the bike. It's going to be about 10 miles an hour, at least that's what's theorized or what typically happens on race day. And then once we make that right-hand turn, that sharp right-hand turn, again, we're going to have a brief reprieve from that. It's going to be a little crosswind before we curl in directly to that headwind, at least what is typical, and you're just going to ride that all the way back in. And on this back section here, remember, we have about 1,300 feet of elevation. We have 320 feet-ish through this section here. So there's no throwaway and there's no real just cruising it in on a course like this. You really have to be on your P's and Q's early on to be able to drive that finish very, very strong. And this is our power plan, right? This is going to be our power. Right here, this is our speed, right? And this is elevation mixed in here. And you will see that that speed, it jumps up and down over in this section right through here. If I'm hovering over it, it does go up and down a bit, right? So speed should be up because we have some of those ups and downs. So don't be afraid to drive those downhills to go up the uphills a bit easier and save your legs a bit more. Now, this is a unique course a bit, right? This is our time analysis, and I've already done I'll do it again for everyone because it went away. So typically the I have the original, which is kind of biking it a little light, and then this one, which is where you kind of open yourself up to some issues later on. But on a course like this, I would probably suggest that you go a little more towards this area, this adjusted one right here, for a couple of reasons. Number one, this bike course isn't super difficult, right? At least on paper, it's not. There's going to be hard sections, of course, right? But in the grand scheme of things, you are not riding a 5,000 elevation gain bike course. You're just not, okay? So you do have the opportunity to go a little bit harder. But remember what I've been saying over the course of our videos this year. If you are chasing some of these other big gains, this is let's call it a 12.4 second gain, but this is over a 13-minute span. So most people out on course will be doing that. We'll be doing something like this section right through here, which is mile, let's call it 23 to the turnaround point there. That's a fool's gain right through there, and you don't really want to do that. You want to be picking these sections that are a little bit shorter, which have a little sharper gain for you. And again, this is 2.5 seconds over the course of 2 minutes. That's what you're gaining, and again, and again, and again, and again. So if you do decide to go a little bit harder on race day, make sure you pick the areas where you want to do that, where you get the most bang for your buck. Okay, make sure you are doing that. Don't chase the obvious ones, right? 12.5 second gains, but of course that happens over a 13-minute span. Is that really worth it out on race day? This is going to be a course that's severely dictated by your FTP and the ability for you to hold your power for a duration, not shooting up a couple of hills very aggressively. You really want to have a higher power output over this course. This is going to be a course where the FTP becomes a real limiter or a real strength depending on who you are. So the higher FTP areas or athletes are going to have more success on a course like this for sure. Also, bigger athletes, watch out for those guys and girls. Once they get up to speed, they are going to be a force to reckon with on a course like this. Lighter athletes are going to pay the price a little bit more on a course like this. Now, the run out on race day, which I'm skipping ahead, and you can see that the elevation profile, they've listed it as about, let's call it 1150 on page 24 of the athlete guide here. Bike rules, page 26. One of the big ones is going to be a no drafting penalty. The draft zone is 12 meters long. Once you enter that zone of the cyclist in front of you, you have to pass them in 25 seconds or less. Failure to do so will result in a penalty. I always tell my athletes, make sure you know where the penalty tent is on course. And if you look back up here, they almost always never put it out on the athlete guide. It's almost always listed at the race venue. Always a question you should ask when you do check in, and something that I skipped over, and I told you guys I would talk about it, are the aid stations out on the bike course. So there are 3 here for you, and there is 1 on the way out and 2 on the way back in, at least as listed here. And there is none after, let's call it mile 45 on the bike. Now that makes all of these aid stations must-haves, must-gets. The first one, don't skip it, even if it's just to cool yourself off and stay and to prevent yourself from overheating. Do not skip it. That is a huge not problem, but a huge issue for a lot of athletes here. They come flying out, and it comes after mile like 15 and a half, 16, right? So most athletes are going to get to this point very, very quickly on race day, and they're just going to skip it and blow past it, and they don't need it, right? And in reality, you don't, but I would suggest that you top yourself off, you cool yourself off, and just stay cool on race day, because that's going to be a huge factor, and it could be a limiting factor depending on who you are and how you execute your race. Um, And with that, we are moving on to the run, which is a 2-loop run course. It is on page 32 of your athlete guide. This is a mock-up of that run course, and you can see here that they have about 290 feet of elevation gain listed. If you go down here, we have a 34 feet of elevation gain. So who is really right? I mean, it's all in what you really believe out there. You're going to have varying incline differences on race day, but for just general argument, this isn't a super challenging run course just like the bike, which means that you can, if we switch back to the best bike split really fast, you do have the opportunity to kind of overbike this, and I use that in quotations, overbike it slightly. Okay, because of the limited elevation here, you're going to be limited by who you are as an athlete and also the weather and what you've done before this point in time. Race nutrition, all of that is going to dictate performance, not real, course ability here. Switching back, aid stations out on this course here, they're going to be coming fast. They're going to be coming very frequently. Most common aid station to skip on a course like this is this one right here before mile 4. I highly, highly suggest, again, you do not do that. Typically, athletes are going to grab something out of that transition area, hit up this first one, and then this one, for whatever reason, athletes just skip. Don't do that. Do not do that. Make sure you are getting something at every aid station. Again, even if it's just cooling yourself off. The turn on this course is right here, so you're only running up and down this point in time 2 times, right? You are experiencing it the first time after transition, and you're doing this little loop here, and then you're doing this loop again before you head back into that transition area. Smart money is on the people who take it easier up until this turnaround point through here, right? This whole stretch of road, they are going to be building their effort up to this point in time. And once you start to get to, I call it the circuit here, once you get to the circuit, that's where the real fun begins, and that's when your real pacing and racing should start if it is not started already. All right? Be careful on race day. There's going to be people that are suckering you into higher paces. It's just like the swim here. You are dictated by yourself here. You are your own best friend and your own worst enemy. This is an Athlete Choice Awards best run course. Anytime you do see things like that, that means it is typically an easier course or a legendary course. So be mindful of what you're doing out there, and don't get suckered into what other people are doing, and keep your nutrition up. Don't forget about it. It is very easy to do on a course like this, okay? If you have power, highly recommend you're utilizing your power in conjunction with your heart rate, cadence, pace, all of that, all right? Use all the pieces to the puzzle. And if you have any other questions out there on race day, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them before you do finish in all your Oregon 70.3 glory. Good luck to everybody, and let me know if you have any questions directly.